Identify indicators of a network attack. Learning outcome. In this module, you will complete the following exercises. Exercise 1, wireless. Exercise 2, domain name system. Exercise 3, other types of attack. Exercise 4, malicious code of script execution. After completing this module, you should be able to verify domain reputation, perform media access control, flooding with MyCoP, perform SYM flooding attack, switch off the Windows firewall on Philip Win 10, perform an ICMP ICMP flood attack, perform the ping of death attack, conduct an address resolution protocol, poisoning attack. After completing this module, you should have further knowledge of Able Twin, rogue access point, threats to Bluetooth device, jamming, radio frequency identifier, near field communication, initialization vector, domain hijacking, DNS poisoning, DNS spoofing attack, universal resource locator, redirection, distributed denial of service, man in the browser, man in the middle, MAC cloning, of or spoofing, PowerShell, Python, Bash, virtual basic or application and macros. Exam objectives. The following exam objectives are covered in this log. Given a scenario, analyze potential indicators associated with network attacks. Wireless, man in the middle, man in the browser, layer 2 attacks. Domain name system, distributed denial of service, malicious code of script execution. Lab duration, it will take approximately 1 hour to complete this lab. Lab assessment, test your knowledge on the topics covered in this lab by completing the lab assessment. Screenshot assessment, items can be found at the end of each exercise, and review questions are located on the review page. Lab topology. During your session, you will have access to the following lab configuration. Depending on the exercise, you may or may not use all of the devices, but they are shown here in the lab layout. To get an overall understanding of the topology of the lab. PLAB DC1, PLAB DM1, PLAB Win10, PLAB Kali. Exercise 1, wireless. Wireless networks are everywhere now. The biggest advantage of a wireless network is that it allows user mobility, unlike an Ethernet connection, where the user is restricted due to an Ethernet cable being used. The wireless network allows the user to be mobile and connected within a certain range. However, there are various threats to wireless network that you should be aware of. In this exercise, you will learn about threats to wireless network and how hacker can attack them. Learning outcomes. After completing this exercise, you should have further knowledge of Evil Twin, rogue access points, threats to Bluetooth device, jamming, radio frequency identifier, near field communication, initialization vector. Your device. This exercise contains supporting materials for security. Evil Twin. In a normal scenario, a user would connect to a wireless access point. The attacker first finds the target WAP and set up another WAP with the same SSID. The attacker tends to choose the busy WAP because when the users are not able to connect to the WAP, they may choose the evil twin with the same SSID. The attacker used the same SSID as a legitimate WAP and start broadcasting. In the evil twin attack, the attacker used a fraudulent WAP and prompts the victim to enter sensitive information such as a password. The attacker can use Wi-Fi Pineapple to automate the setup of an evil twin. If the user do not automatically connect to the evil twin, then the attackers can launch a de-authentication or dis- disassociation attack, which will disconnect the users from the existing WAP. The user may then connect to the evil twin. Rogue access point. A rogue access point is an access point that has not been authorized by the network administrator in a organization. For example, a user brings a wireless access point from the home and install it on the network by plugging in the Ethernet cable. This is a simplest example of a rogue access point. The network administrator has not authorized it, and the users may end up connecting to the rogue access point. The rogue access point is usually configured to massacre the SSID name of an actual wireless access point. Setting up a rogue access point requires to have physical access of the network. The attacker can install the rogue access point on the physical network. The users can then connect to it. Over time, the attacker will keep capturing information. The user can also bring an access point and connect to the company's network and offer connectivity to the other users. This user can then capture the information that they were not supported to have access to. Threats to Bluetooth devices. Bluetooth is an open standard wireless technology that is used to exchange information and files between two devices. Bluetooth work on Bluetooth works only with short range radio frequency. When two devices connected with each other using a Bluetooth connection, they create a wireless personal area network. Same threats to Bluetooth devices are bluejacking, send an send an unsolicited message to other device that has its Bluetooth connection open. Blue spinning use a directional antenna to establish connection with Bluetooth-enabled device. Bluetooth has a distance limitation which may prevent a hacker from establishing a connection. In this situation, the hacker can use a directional antennas to establish connections for up to a mile, 1.6 kilometers. Blue snarfing uses the blue jacking method to connect to the device, then gain access to the address book containing information, email, and text messages. Blue snarfing uses Bluetooth to steal information from a wireless device. Blue snarfing attack can occur using unintended Bluetooth pairing. Warnibling or blue casing. A hacker tries to find unsecured or unpatched Bluetooth connection, then steal information. Warnibling is similar to war diving, which is performed on the wireless network. Jamming. The jamming attack is a denial of service attack against the wireless medium. The attacker can use various devices or equipment to do this. For example, the attacker can generate the interference signal to block any type of communication being sent to the channel that was being used. The idea is to prevent user from using a legitimate WAP. Jamming could be used as a precursor to the evil twin attack. When the attacker jams the signal, the user tends to connect to a WAP with the same name, which leads to the evil twin attack. Two types of jammers can achieve jamming. An active jammer always keeps the channel busy and blocks the communication. The reactive jammer keeps quiet until a session is established using the channel. Radio frequency identifier RFID is being used across different industries. One of the most common uses is using them as tag to identify a piece of hardware or even an item in the supply chain. A chip is placed on each device or item, and readers can communicate with the chip. Each chip is assigned a unique identifier. The inventory management system tracks both the chip and readers. Just like any other technology, RFID is also prone to various types of attack, which are eavesdropping, an unauthorized reader listens to the communication between the RFID card and the reader. Replay, the communication between the legitimate reader and the card is recorded and played at a later time. The information can be replayed to the legitimate reader to gain access to the information. Sniffing, an attacker sniffs the communication between the card and the reader. Man in the middle, the attacker intercepts the original communication between the reader and the card and then replaces the communication with its own. Cloning, a method of duplicating the card information to another card. Spoofing occurs after the cloning part is complete. With the clone card, the attacker can access information. Near-field communication includes two wireless devices communicating through touching or bringing them in close proximity. Several RFID attacks also apply to NFC. These attacks are eavesdropping, data modification, MITM, initialization vector. By learning the plain text of one packet, the attacker tries to compute the RC4 keystring generated by the IV. Other packets sent by the same IV can be decrypted using this keystring. Using this method, the attacker can build a decryption table using every possible set to decrypt all the packets sent over a wireless connection. Exercise 2, Domain Name System is responsible for name resolution. Without DNS, it would not have been possible to run the internet. It provides the domain name to IP address mapping. You could simply type a URL and get the desired website rather than remembering IP address. It is also important to note that DNS is one of the oldest protocol and has several vulnerabilities and security flaws. In this exercise, you will learn about various types of attacks that are possible on DNS. Learning outcome: after completing this exercise, you should be able to verify domain reputation. After completing this exercise, you should have further knowledge of domain hijacking, DNS poisoning, DNS spoofing attack, universal resource locator redirection. Your device, you will be using the following devices in this lab. Please power this on now. PLAB DC1, PLAB Win10. Domain hijacking. In this attack, the attacker gained access to the domain registration to get hold of the primary DNS information. Then the attacker simply changes the domain information to point to a domain server controlled by the attacker. DNS poisoning. DNS poisoning, also referred to as DNS spoofing, corrupt the DNS data residing in the DNS cache. Then DNS poisoning attack is successful. The DNS server will return wrong IP addresses when resolving a host or domain name. This results in traffic being diverted to another computer, often to the attacker's computer, where the attacker can decipher the data sent. Cookie prevention methods can be setting short TTL time and clearing the DNS cache of location of local system and network devices at regular interval. A high-level ISP is the US accidentally fetched records from China, which blocked YouTube and Facebook in the US. This is a classic example of DNS poisoning. DNS spoofing attack refers to an attack that diverts a domain name to an incorrect IP address. When a victim research when a victim searches a domain name mapped to an incorrect IP address of the attacker's system, the user is diverted to it. Therefore, the victim does not get to see the correct website, but instead the attacker's website is displayed. For example, a victim attempts to connect to www.google.com instead of searching www.google.com. The victim is directed to a similar looking website of the attacker system. In DNS spoofing, the www.google.com is mapped to IP address of the attacker's choice. Universal Resource Locator redirection. URL redirection is a method of sending a client request for one URL to another URL. For example, if you send a request for www.microsoft.net, it is automatically redirected to another URL such as www.microsoft.com. There are several reasons due to which URL redirection can be performed. Some of the reasons can be simply simple, such as shortening the URL or redirecting the broken URLs. There can be reasons that if the organization has multiple domain names such as www.example.net, www.example.biz, or any other URL the organization wants all users access. See these URLs to be redirected to www.example.com. However, hackers use URL redirection for malicious purposes. A hacker may simply redirect your request when you click on a URL to a website hosted only of malware distribution. Task 1, verify domain reputation. Domain reputation defines the health status of the domain in the context of messaging. When a domain is used for sending messages over the internet, its health determined by various factors such as bounce rate and spam complaint. For example, if your organization sends a large number of messages to unknown recipients, those messages those messages may be considered as a spam, and going forward, the number of messages marked as spam will affect the domain reputation. In this task, you will learn to explore a domain reputation tool. To do this, perform the following steps. Ensure you have power on all the devices listed in the introduction and connect to PLogin 10. Click the Microsoft Edge icon on the taskbar. The intranet website is displayed. Type the following URL in the address bar. In the reputation lookup text box, type the following URL. You may get the following web page. The web browser is being checked. After the checking progress is completed, you will be redirected to the result page. When you see the result page, scroll down to the middle of the web page. Notice that the domain reputation is listed. After evaluating the domain reputation, scroll down further. Currently, you are on the IP addresses tab. Click the email volume history tab. Notice that the email volume per day status is shown. You can mouse over any of the pyramids shown and get the volume equivalent to Richter scale. Exercise 3, other types of attack. As more and more systems and services make their presence on the internet, the attack surface increases right from the sample, right from a simple, harmless web browser or a critical web server. Everything on the internet can be considered unsafe. In this exercise, you will learn about different types of attack that can cause security issues. Learning outcomes. After completing this exercise, you should be able to perform media access control plotting with Mach, perform Mach flooding using your Yersinia, perform SYN flooding attacks, switch off the Windows firewall on PLOB-WIN10 perform an ICMP flooding attack, perform the ping of that attack, conduct a address resolution protocol poisoning attack. After completing this exercise, you should have further knowledge of distributed denial of service, man in the browser, man in the middle, MAC cloning or spoofing. Your device, you will be using the following devices in this lab. Please power this on now. PLAB DM1, PLAB Win10, PLAB Poly. Distributed denial of service. A denial of service attack is conducted using one system which sends high traffic to the target system. The DOS attack is one-to-one kind of attack in which a single system used by the attacker targets another system, which is usually a server. When this attack is launched on a target, it drains out the system resources. A DOS attack can impact application which is running on a server, a network, or even other technologies that may be part of the network. Depending on where the attack has occurred, it can take down an application, network, or whether technology is facing the internet. Evaluating when the target runs out of system resources, it becomes unavailable to provide services to legitimate users. Distributed denial of service has the same intent, but its execution method is slightly different. Instead of using a single system, it may use hundreds of thousands, systems known as zombies or bots to attack one or more target systems. This type of attack sometimes becomes slightly difficult to detect as the traffic originates from different systems which have different IP addresses. Key tools used for DOS or DDoS attack: low orbit ion cannon, HOIC, XOIC, HTTP unbearable load ping, UDP Flooder, Are You Dead Yet, Nemesis, Thor's Hammer, Pyloris, OWASP Switchable, Switchblade, Switchblade, Davoset. Man in the browser. The man in the browser attack is conducted by installing a Trojan as a web browser extension. The Trojan can be sent to the user's email, account as an attachment. And if the users open the attachment, the Trojan installs itself as an extension in the browser. After the extension is installed, all types of communication between the web browser and the web server can not only be intercepted but also modified. For example, with a malicious extension installed, if the user performs a financial transaction, the extension can capture the inputs such as user credential and later use it to conduct more financial transactions. The malicious extension works in a stealth mode and therefore the user does not get to know any details of the transactions taking place. Man in the middle. Man in the middle is a type of attack in which an attacker is able to intercept the communication between the two user and attacker is also able to change the conversation. If he or she wants to, the attacker's main goal is to listen to the conversation between both parties and intercept the conversation, which can be used later. MITM attack can be performed using different methods such as ARP poisoning, ICMP, redirects DNS poisoning man in the browser. MAC cloning or spoofing. Each device on the network has a MAC address, which is globally unique. An organization with a wireless network can choose to implement MAC filtering, which will allow the system to connect on only if its MAC address is listed in the WAP configuration. This means that only the devices whose MAC addresses are listed in the WAP configuration can access the wireless network. Any devices that does not have its MAC address listed in the web configuration will be denied access. However, the attacker, if he or she managed to find any of the MAC addresses listed in the web configuration, can use the same MAC address on their own system or laptop. WAP will not dif- differentiate between the device with the real MAC address and a device with the spoof MAC address. Now the attacker system has the captured MAC address. The wireless network will check for the MAC address, and since it is whitelisted in its configuration, the attacker system will be able to connect. Task 1. Perform media access control flooding with MACO. The MACO tool can be used to flood a switch with a fake MAC address. When this tool sends a list of MAC addresses to a switch, it fills the switch count table. Post this, the switch cannot save any new MAC addresses and start sending information to all the ports. In this task, you will learn to use MACOF to perform MAC flooding. Ensure that all the required devices are power on. Connect to PLAB Caddy in the enter your user text box. After a successful login, the desktop is displayed. On the desktop, right click and select Open Terminal here. The older version of Kali Linux MacOS was pre-installed. However, you need to install the snif package, which contains various tools including macOS. To begin the installation of the snif, type the following command. If this occurs, type the following command. When provided with a prompt asking you wish to continue, type Y and hit enter. Once this command is completed, type the following. The installation process for this NIF starts. The installation of these NIFs does not take a long time. After the installation is completed, you are back in the command prompt. Task 2. Perform mock flooding using Yersinia. Just like the Mako tool, you can use Yersinia to perform mock flooding. In this task, you will learn to use Yersinia. To do this, perform the following steps. The Yersinia window is displayed. Note that you are prompted with a warning that it is an alpha version. Click OK. The Yersinia Windows is now fully visible. Ensure that you are on CDP tab on the right pane. Click Launch Attack. The Choose Attack dialog box is displayed. The Sending CDP packet option is selected by default. Select Flooding CDP table and click OK. Note that flooding is initiated instantly. Select a value in the upper right pane. Note that the bottom left pane displays the source MAC addresses. Select a number of them and note that each one has different MAC addresses. Click List Attack. The running attack dialog box is displayed. Click Stop. Task 3. Perform SYN flooding attack. SYN flooding, a type of denial service attack, is conducted by an attacker to send a flood SYN packet to target. When there is a flood of a large number of SYN packets, the target cannot respond to them. In responding to these SYN packets, the target system starts consuming all its resources and eventually exhausts them. As a consequence of running out of system resources, the target becomes non-responsive or hangs. In some cases, the target also crashes. To conduct SYN flooding, perform the following steps. The HPing 3 command starts. Connect to PLOG Win10 in the type here, text box, type the following. The Wireshark window is now open. From the adapter list, select Ethernet. In the upper left corner, click the Start Capturing Packets. The, the SYN packets are now being captured. Note that there is a flood of SYN packets that are sent to 192.168.0.3, which is Philippine 10. Philippine 10 is now running out of the system resources. The system will most likely become unresponsive. Attempt to click inside the workshop window or on the start term, you will notice that Philippine 10 system does not respond. Switch to Pilab Kali SYN flooding is still in progress. Switch back to Philippine, close, war, sharp. Task Force, switch off the Windows firewall on Philippine 10. You will need to switch off the Windows firewall to perform an attack on Philippine 10. There are attacking methods that you can use to bypass the window or any other firewall running on the target. However, for the sake of this module, you will switch off the Windows firewall and proceed to the remaining tasks. To switch off the Windows firewall on Philippine 10, perform the following steps. The Windows Defender firewall window is displayed on the Help Protect Your PC with Windows Defender firewall. Click Turn Windows Defender firewall on or off. On the customized setting for each type of network page, select Turn off Windows firewall not recommended. For domain private and public network settings, click OK. On the Help Protect Your PC with Windows Defender firewall page, notice that Windows Defender firewall is now turned off for domain private and public network. Close the Windows Defender firewall. Task 5. Perform an ICMP flood attack. Like the SYN flood attack, there is another type of flood attack known as ICMP flooding, which is also a denial service attack. In this type of attack, instead of sending SYN packets, the attacker sends a flood of ICMP packets to a target system. In this task, you will learn to conduct ICMP flooding. To conduct ICMP flooding, perform the following steps. Select Ethernet and click the Start Capturing Packets icon. Switch to PLAB Kali. The terminal window should be open. Clear the screen. You will be sending 100 ICMP packets to the targeting system 192.168.0.3. The ICMP packets are now sent to the target system. Switch to PLAB Kali. Peel of green pen, notice if the pockets capture highlight in blue color. Switch to peel of Pali. Wait to verify 100 pockets have been successfully transmitted. Switch Switch to peel of green pen and close lower sharp. Click stop and quit Windows without saving. As Thief perform the ping death attack. Using the ping command, you can perform a ping death attack. You can send data packets of size 65500 ident infinitely to a target system while it may not bring down the system, it will impact the performance of the target system. You can use DDoS attack on a target system to bring it down. And this task you will perform the ping death. To do this, perform the following steps. Ensure you power on all devices. And the server manager window is displayed to close this window. Right click the Windows charm and select Run. The ping command starts to send packets to the target system, which is Pilogrim 10. Switch to Pilgrim 10. You should be on desktop. Right click the taskbar and then click Task Manager. Notice that multiple tabs in the Task Manager window appear. Click the Performance tab. On the Performance tab, the CPU option is selected by default. Click Internet. Notice that there is an increased network activity on Pilogrim 10 system. Switch back to Pilog VM1. Press Ctrl C to terminate the ping command. Notice that the network activity has reduced. Task 7. Conduct an address resolution protocol poisoning attack. ARP poisoning is also known as ARP spoofing. In ARP poisoning, a hacker sends a fake ARP message on a network. The attacker also links its own MAC address with the IP addresses of the other system. The attacker can then receive messages that were intended to be sent to the owner of the IP address. However, instead of the owner, the attacker receives the message. ARP spoofing can occur if both the parties, the attacker and the victim, have the system in the same broadcasting domain. To conduct an ARP spooning poisoning attack, perform the following steps. In this class, you will use EtherCup. It was specifically designed for man-in-the-middle attacks. Click Application, select 09 sniffing and spoofing, and then select EtherCup graphics. Before you proceed further with the ARP poisoning attack, let's first check the ARP table until the Win10 system. Notice that each system has different MAC address. Switch back. Notice that sniffing is already in progress. On the extreme upper right corner, click the three dots, click host, and then select scan for host. Notice several systems appear on the list. The host list tab is displayed. Select 192.168.0.2 and click Add to Target. You can see that 192.168.0.2 has been added to Target 1. Select 192.168.0.3, add to Target 2. Notice that the IP addresses are now added in the Target 1 and Target 2 sections. Next, you will perform a ARP poisoning attack. Click the MITM menu. Select ARP poisoning. Ensure sniff remove. Click OK. Switch to Killer Green Pen. Type ARP. Negative A. Notice the MAC address for 192.168.0.2 and 192.168.0.4 are the same close to command prompt. Drag the button selection command to the top of the real-time status. Notice that the group 1 and group 2 is now described with the change MAC address, which is retrieved from AR cache. Exercise 4, malicious code or script execution. When a piece of code or a script is written, there is a purpose that needs to be met. The outcome of the purpose is achieved by execution of a code or script depending on your intention. You would write the script or code accordingly. It is necessary to understand that the code or script need not too lengthy. A short script or code can cause a good amount of damage. For example, you can write a small script and inject it into a website, and then the web browser loads the website. The script is executed. Even though this is not really a malicious script, it does through a dialog box to the user. Then he or she loads the website. Malicious code or script are written to cause damage with a other privilege escalation, disrupt the normal functionality, or even steal information. Depending on the requirements, the malicious code or script can differ in nature. In this exercise, you will learn about malicious code or script execution. Learning outcomes. After completing the exercise, you should have further knowledge of PowerShell, Python, Bash, Virtual Basic for application, and macros. Your devices. This exercise contains supporting materials for security. PowerShell file-based malware is a common practice. The malware, depending on its design and functionality, is sent to the user system, and upon the execution, it can cause damage. A new type of malware known as fileless malware is now becoming common. A fileless malware does not copy itself to the system storage, but rather loads itself to the memory. It is where PowerShell comes in handy to write and deliver such malware. A system can differently have different layers of security. However, when the malware is executed from memory, it is quite unlikely that the different security controls can catch it in the system. When you install Windows 10 or any other recent version of Windows, such as Windows Server 2019, PowerShell by default does not allow script execution because of restricted settings in the script execution policies. However, hackers have found a workaround to bypass a restricted settings by simply loading the script into the memory. With the bypass parameter used in this command, the restricted mode is bypassed and the mentioned script is directly loaded and executed from memory. Python is being used by programmers to write small scripts to create large, complex, dynamic applications. Python is extensively used by hackers from creating malicious script, embedded script within application, or writing malware shared with the users in different ways, such as emails. Let's take an example of shell shock malicious script and exploit the bash shell vulnerability. Once a system is compromised, the hacker can then use the system as a bot to conduct a distributed denial of service attack. Numerous systems across the world can be pulled into a botnet, which is collection of bots. One of the key advantages of using Python is it has large support for open source script and package. Hackers can build small malware using these scripts and packages originally designed to help the programmers. Hackers can perform numerous tasks on a system or network using a Python script such as code obfuscation. There is no limit to what Python can do on a system. For example, a hacker can create malware in Python to take screenshot on a system using its built-in webcam. Python script can also have an adverse effect on the system resources such as memory and CPU. However, it is easy to execute Python-based malware and malicious script in Linux and Mac system as Python is pre-installed in them. On Windows, hackers usually convert the Python code into an executable and then attempt to deliver it to the target system. Bash. Bash is Bash is one of the initial platform where malware and virus were written. Even today, a large number of malware are written using Bash. You can write a small malicious script of a few lines, but it can crash a system in a few minutes. For example, using Bash, you can write a script that puts itself into loop, which will eventually consume all the system resources. Bash makes it easy for hackers to even install depend, dependencies on a Linux system. For example, the script could use the yum command to install dependencies required for malware to run. Virtual Basic for application and macros. VBA is mainly used with Microsoft applications such as MS Word to automate various tasks. Using VBA, you can access system event and objects within an operating system. Using VBA, you can write macros which can also be recorded with Microsoft application. You do not need programming skills to record a macro. Other than coming handy for automating tasks, macro open up a new frontier for the hacker to attack the end user system because the macro are embedded within Office documents and can be triggered when a document open. They can take advantage of this capability. For example, a macro embedded with a document was attached in an email which when opened triggered the macro. Macro within an official document could use a wide range of damage. It could corrupt the operating system and application, download malware, or even replicate itself via email without user intervention. A security control such as antivirus may not help as macro are embedded within documents after malicious macro are becomes frequently. Microsoft disabled macros in August 2007. The user is required to use macros to manually enable them.